The movie begins in South Carolina with a helicopter pursuing a blue automobile over hazardous steep terrain. Prominent scientist and electronic engineer Dr. Mulligan is behind the wheel of the vehicle, and a 10-year-old child named Daryl is riding in the back. The soldiers of a covert government organization called TASUM are then seen pursuing them. Dr. Mulligan takes refuge among the dense trees and briefly loses control of the chopper. He takes advantage of the moment to let Daryl out of the car, and the child flees to a nearby trail. Then, intentionally, Dr. Mulligan steers the vehicle to a wider route, attracting the helicopter's notice. He drives off a precipice and into the river below in a supreme gesture of selflessness. The troops have little chance of knowing that Daryl has already escaped when the automobile is crushed into a pulp. Furthermore, given his name, Dr. Mulligan is most likely returning as well, while the helicopter meticulously inspects the accident debris. An elderly couple finds Daryl safely and takes him to Barkington, a nearby South Carolina industrial town. Soon after, the child is turned over to the police and brought to a nearby daycare facility. There, he undergoes basic physical examinations and takes a bath. Daryl glances at Snellen's chart during the eye exam, then turns aside and repeats the entire alphabet in a sequential manner. He clearly has extraordinary cerebral talents and is not your typical child. I suppose it is impressive that a 10-year-old can already recognize the alphabet. The results of Daryl's medical evaluation are later delivered to Howie Fox, the center's chief social worker. The child appears to have acute amnesia, although his physique is in wonderful condition. Although he does not remember his parents or his origins, he told him that they would locate his biological parents and that, in the meantime, Daryl would have to live in a foster home in accordance with state regulations. The fact that Daryl is an AI robot, whose name stands for Data Analyzing Robot Young Life Form, and not like the other missing or orphaned children, is what Howie and everyone else are unaware of. The child is a TASOM artificial intelligence experiment, the covert government agency. Although Daryl appears to be a typical 10-year-old boy, his brain is actually an advanced microcomputer with amazing features, such as the goddamn alphabet, the ability to hack and manipulate other computer systems, and extraordinary reflexes and multitasking abilities. The military funded the Daryl project with the goal of creating a better soldier in the future, but Dr. Mulligan, one of the project's experts, had grown more concerned about the project's immoral goals. That was the reason he and Daryl had fled the mission on base. A few days later, Howie calls his neighbor and good friend Andy Richardson on this new child at the facility. After that, Daryl is given to Andy and his devoted wife, Joyce, who will act as his foster parents. As it turns out, the couple wants to adopt a child because they are unable to conceive biological children. However, they must first foster a child in order to obtain approval. The couple welcomes Daryl to his new temporary residence and is overjoyed to have him. Daryl blends in with the Richardson family with ease as the days go by. Although he is very helpful and amiable, the adults quickly saw that he lacked some social skills. He takes things quite literally and lacks an understanding of humor and sarcasm. Thus, they present him to the Fox family, who live next door. Mrs. Elaine, their teenage daughter Sherry, and their clever son, Tyler Turtle Fox, are all introduced to him. After that, Turtle brings his new pal home, where they play the computer game Pole Position. As he observes, Daryl is instantly enthralled with the game. He then gives it a shot and breaks the record for most points on the first try. Do not take it too seriously, though, because Turtle and Sherry find this hilarious. Daryl attends school for the first time a few days later and impresses the teacher with his remarkable academic skills. At home, Andy instructs the child in baseball, but Daryl's powerful hitting skills astound him. Andy imagines his hometown baseball team, the Mohawks, winning the title as a result. In order to prevent the youngster from being snatched by other agents, he then demands that Daryl swear not to tell anybody about his exceptional baseball abilities. But the kid robot does not understand the notion of keeping secrets, so he immediately proceeds to inform his foster mother about his fun. Despite his inability to understand it, Daryl also starts to learn about men's attraction to women. One day, Andy and Daryl visit the ATM to take out cash. But due to a glitch in the bank computer, the machine indicates that there are not enough funds. At this point, Daryl resolves the issue on his own and fixes the mistake. Additionally, without Andy's awareness, he tricks the computer into displaying $1.4 million in his account. In order to warm up for the baseball game, Daryl and Andy then head to the school. Joyce acknowledges her conflicted feelings while conversing with her friends at home. Because Daryl is such a perfect child and handles all of his chores by himself, she feels unwelcome as a mother. He makes his own bed, irons his own clothing, and shines his own shoes. In fact, Joyce claims that he is a better mother than she is. One day, Howie arrives at their house with the dreadful news that Daryl's biological parents have been located by the authorities. Despite their disappointment, the Richardsons choose to work with Daryl and let him see his parents again. The mechanical youngster has clearly become connected to Joyce and Andy. He even demands to spend the remainder of his life with them. Andy, however, informs him that he must accompany his biological parents, who have been searching for him for months and miss him. When Daryl's parents, Ellen and Jeffrey, come to Barkington the following morning to take him home, Turtle is so upset at the circumstances that he finds it impossible to say goodbye to his friend. After some time, Daryl's parents take him directly to the airport, where they board a private jet to return home. He receives a debriefing about the important things he learned while living with the Richardsons, and in a startling turn of events, it is revealed that Ellen and Jeffrey are actually task completion sources restored. Important instances, like the conscious choice to strike out during the baseball game, are highlighted in the debriefing. This shows that he understands that sometimes giving up something might result in getting something else. Furthermore, it is mentioned that Daryl subjectively prefers chocolate-flavored ice cream to vanilla-flavored ice cream. Jeffrey is shocked by the revelation, since it leads him to believe that Daryl is capable of feeling human emotions. Ellen, though, remains unconvinced. Jeffrey chooses to perform certain biochemical tests as a result. They place him in a room full of medical professionals and start examining his brain in detail. Daryl, on the other hand, breaks into the lab's computer and writes that he is afraid, and feeling that a robot is incapable of experiencing. Suddenly, the scene shifts to the Pentagon, where Dr. Jeffrey is presenting the results to the military generals. The military declares the Daryl project a failure after learning that Daryl is capable of experiencing human emotions, including fear. Jeff is shocked by their choice because he thinks they now know a lot more about Daryl than they did previously as a result of Dr. Mulligan's efforts. However, the generals decide to end the experiment since they think a robot like Daryl is useless to the Army. Additionally, the Army directs Dr. Jeffrey to create an adult Daryl who is programmed to absorb all of the Army's lessons. Though its name is still Daryl, it is a fearless, technically proficient, and devastating soldier. Therefore, nobody is being intimidated. Disappointed, Dr. Jeffrey tries to break the bad news to Daryl, but he lacks the bravery to do so because he has become so devoted to the little robot. Daryl then takes advantage of the occasion to ask for permission to have Richardson and his friend Turtle visit him. Unexpectedly, Dr. Jeffrey concurs, believing that they should have one final meeting with him before he is demolished. Howie, Richardson's father, and his turtle soon make their way to the TASOM labs. They are greeted by Dr. Jeffrey, who also tells them the truth about Daryl. They find it hard to believe, much to their surprise. However, they are astounded when Dr. Jeffrey displays some of Daryl's superhuman qualities. Daryl reunites with his family shortly after and gives them a heartfelt embrace. Dr. Jeffrey is so moved by this that he decides to permanently liberate him. Jeffrey comes up with a scheme to sneak Daryl out of the facility after sending the family home. However, Dr. Ellen, his long-standing colleague, finds out about the scheme and notifies the military chief. As soon as he gets to the hospital, the latter gives the scientists the order to immediately eliminate Daryl. Dr. Ellen is tasked with deconstructing Daryl to make sure the mission is completed, and she reluctantly does so. After being informed by the military chief that Daryl has been fired, a furious Dr. Jeffrey storms out of the building. The mechanical boy is still alive, nevertheless, in a shocking turn of events. In some way, Dr. Jeffrey had persuaded Dr. Allen to save Daryl's life. He was able to sneak the youngster out of the lab and put him in the boot of his automobile. After that, the doctor drives off without anyone noticing, but this is when things start to go wrong. Ellen and Jeffrey's messages are visible to the military chief on the lab's computer. Yes, the error was made by the top scientists in the world. He commands his troops to halt Jeffrey now that he is aware that the robot boy is still active. By this time, a fierce automobile chase ensues as the doctor is forced to leave the lab's grounds. However, Daryl bravely takes the wheel and uses his superhuman driving abilities to shake off the police cars. After that, the two switch cars and spend the night at a nearby motel. Jeffrey intends to take Daryl to a hidden place the next morning. Everything appears to be going smoothly as they set out in an old pickup. However, when the two encounter a police checkpoint, things take a more sinister turn. At first, Jeffrey is able to divert the on-duty police and even displays all of his documents. However, the cop spots Daryl from the rear window as the truck is ready to go. Jeffrey refuses to stop the car when he tells the elderly guy to do so. The cop shoots the elderly man in the abdomen because he has no other choice. They are able to escape the checkpoint, but Jeffy stutters out of the automobile after stopping it close to a woodland. After suffering significant blood loss, he finally dies in Daryl's arms. For the first time in his life, the poor youngster breaks down in tears. That same evening, Daryl breaks into a nearby USAF airbase and uses a computer hack to set off multiple alarms. He steals a Lockheed SR-71 Blackbird by using the distraction that the sirens provide. Every soldier on the base is made to watch in helplessness as a 10-year-old takes off in the most sophisticated fighter plane ever made. The child feeds at the coordinates for Barkington, his hometown, while putting the plane on autopilot. Additionally, Daryl calls his friend Turtle and tells him to accompany Sherry to Blue Lake. However, the military lacks a missile capable of capturing the Blackbird. They are compelled to warn Daryl that a self-destruct device will cause the plane to disintegrate in mid-air. But the child is ahead of them and comes up with a scheme to pretend to be dead. He ejects at the last second before the plane burns up, waiting for the self-destruct timer to go off. Regretfully, Daryl is momentarily rendered unconscious by the G-force applied during the ejection. He falls into the Blue Lake quite gently. The additional weight makes him sink while still strapped to his seat, and the poor youngster eventually drowns as a result. Turtle and Sherry ride their bikes to the lake to meet their friend in the interim. After some patient waiting, Daryl's body quickly floats to the lake's surface. An upset Turtle plunges into the sea and swiftly pulls his best friend out. He immediately hurried Daryl to the closest hospital with his sister. Unfortunately, Daryl is formally pronounced dead after showing no signs of life. Therefore, it is too little, too late. Everyone is devastated by this incident, and the Richardson and Fox families weep together. However, Turtle is still naively certain that his pal cannot die because he lacks a human brain. Unbeknownst to them, Dr. Ellen, a TASM scientist, finds Daryl's dead body in the hospital. She silently brings him back to life by turning on his artificial brain. Daryl is no longer on TASC's radar because he was formally pronounced dead, because, I suppose, they did not implant any kind of GPS or tracker chip in him. Despite being the priciest advanced robot ever created, he can finally go back to his best friend and foster family. A sad Turtle is preparing to leave the Richardson house for his own residence when he emerges, only to be met by Daryl, who rushes over to greet him. The two best friends embrace as the film comes to a close. To see more videos, subscribe. Thank you for watching, and please help the channel by turning on notifications and leaving a like.